Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. Welcome to another session of EN534 Environmental Law and Policy Development by Tufail Ali Zubedi. In our previous classes, we discussed some sections of the SINDH Environmental Protection Act 2014. In today's class, we will discuss the SINDH Sustainable Development Fund Procedure and Utilization Rules 2014. The procedure for filing a project that will utilize the SINDH Sustainable Development Fund, its appraisal are given in sections 7 and 8. The criteria for sanction of financial assistance, the sanction of financial assistance, post-sanction formalities, and the project implementations are covered in sections 9 through 12 respectively. The financial management of a public funded project through maintaining accounts and audits and annual report are covered in section 13 and 14. Finally, in section 15, it repeals the provisions of Provincial Sustainable Development Fund Board Procedure and Utilization Rules 2001, which are given in Pakistan Environmental Protection Act 1987, which I am sure you already know this through the enactment of the 18th Constitutional Amendment Act 2010. These rules shall be known as the SINDH Sustainable Development Fund Procedure and Utilization Rules 2014 and shall come into force at once. All definitions are seen from the SINDH Environmental Protection Act 2014. For easy reference and for our understanding in the later sections, I have added project proposal definition from the rules, which states that the project proposal means a proposal for institutional strengthening of agency, awareness, consultancy charges for assistance to the agency to perform its functions, conducting studies concerning to environmental issues, and for environmental improvement. The board shall meet as necessary, but at least once in a quarter. That makes how many quarters? The board shall be presided by its chairperson, and in his absence, someone to preside the meeting. Meeting date will be communicated at least 15 days in advance in writing by the secretary of the board. In case there is an urgent meeting, special meetings can be convened at any time. If a meeting cannot be held, decision shall be taken in accordance with the views of the majority of the members. There is a requirement of having 7 members to constitute a quorum at a meeting of the board. Members shall not be paid any remuneration for the services except daily allowance and or traveling allowance for attending meeting of the board. Agenda items of the meeting shall be communicated in writing to the members by the secretary along with the notice of the date and place of the meeting. Dear audience, please note that during your professional life, similar procedures will be followed for any meeting. Agenda listing, matter for discussion, along with working papers, background materials are prepared by the proposers. Please take a minute to go through this item in the section. The chairperson of the board may disallow inclusion of any matter in the agenda from the proposal. So, do you think that the chairperson shall take this decision before or after the secretary has circulated the agenda? Think about it. Of course, before the Secretary has circulated the agenda, the Secretary shall communicate to the proposer the reasons for the decision of the Chairperson to disallow inclusion of any matter in the agenda. Please take a minute to read through the slide. So basically, all decisions of the board shall be taken by consensus. But if this fails, decisions shall be taken through majority of votes. And in case there is an equality of votes, then the chairperson shall have a casting vote. All decisions shall be recorded in a book maintained by the secretary and authenticated by the chairperson. In case you were wondering, a casting vote is an extra vote given by a chairperson to decide an issue when the votes on each side are equal. Committee of the board may be constituted for facilitating the performance of its functions and ensuring efficient operations of the fund. The remaining items are related to the committee. Please go through these. For projects proposed for financing through SINDH Sustainable Development Fund shall need to fulfill these points. Please keep in mind the definition of project proposal when you read these items. Any questions so far? Let's note down our questions so that we can have it after we are through with this presentation. All project proposals shall be addressed to the board, filed with the secretary, who shall duly enter it in a register maintained for this purpose and shall issue a receipt to the person filing it. The board shall invite project proposals at least twice a year, depending upon the availability of the funds. The secretary shall carry out a preliminary examination, and if it is found to be eligible for financial assistance, he shall admit the project for submission to the board for considering in its next meeting. The detailed appraisal of the project proposal shall be carried out by the appraisal committee. The appraisal committee shall seek assistance from experts in carrying out the detailed appraisal. The appraisal report shall be prepared for consideration in its next meeting. This is the criteria for sanction of financial assistance. This slide is speaking of priorities for sanctioning of project proposal. The board shall endeavor to ensure that the total financial assistance sanctioned industry-wise in a year is proportional to the pollution charges paid by each industry. Please bear in mind that SEPA has not yet established pollution charges for the industry. So, in accordance with the 18th Constitutional Amendment Act 2010, we still have to follow the federal pollution charges for the factory. Sanction of financial assistance for any project. This section relates to formalities after the sanctioning of the project proposal, which basically is that the project proponent shall complete all legal formalities within 1 month of the receipt of sanction letter, and that the procurement of equipment under the sanctioned financial assistance shall be made in accordance with the SINDH Public Procurement Authority Rules 2010. We will not cover the SINDH Public Procurement Authority Act 2010. All project financed from the fund shall be executed and implemented by the agency. Agency shall identify the problems and recommend remedial measures for approval. The agency shall submit quarterly progress report for information. The financial management of a public funded project through maintaining accounts and audits and annual report are covered in section 13 and 14. Finally, in section 15, it repeals the provisions of Provincial Sustainable Development Fund Board Procedure and Utilization Rules 2001, which are given in Pakistan Environmental Protection Act 1997, which I am sure you already know this through the enactment of the 18th Constitutional Amendment Act 2010.